Hey there riders, MotoJourno Chris here for mcnews.com.au. We are testing the Royal Enfield shotgun today, and I gotta say, really cool machine. This is a little bit of a departure from the norm for Royal Enfield. It's based on, from what I've been told, the bones of the Super Meteor. So if you were liking that kind of cruiser theme, but perhaps cruiser things aren't your, total bag, which is totally understandable, this is probably going to appeal to you way more than the Super Meteor. It is a modular design. It's kind of like a bobber, I would say. Probably that's the closest. And it's a little bit closer to the more traditional Royal Enfields that we've seen as far as those 350s, which are very popular machines. And we finally get that in a parallel twin option, which I think is really going to appeal to people. So there's a lot of stuff going for these bikes. I'll very quickly do the rundown. Great thing to ride. It's got the Showa forks on it. It has dual shocks on the rear. It's got a nice, quite sporty ride to it. It isn't as plush as the Super Meteor, but it's a really fun thing. It's a nice handler. You will run out of ground clearance if you're really pushing through the corners, but nothing that's really too much of a problem, I will say. Great engine, very willing, great mid-range. You can knock it through that gearbox and really rev it out, which is great. I don't think it's perhaps quite as sporty as the naked 650s, but it does have a bit more pep than the Super Meteor, which is very much appreciated. And obviously it's a bit more of a lighter version of the Super Meteor, certainly. It doesn't feel like a heavy cruiser. It feels more like the naked bikes, very well balanced. And jumping on this bike as well, very inviting. It's not as low as I thought it might be. I looked at kind of the pictures and went, wow, that's going to have a very low seat height, maybe in the low 700s. It doesn't. It has a 795mm seat height. So if you're a very short rider, you might find that between that seat height and the engine being a little bit wider between your legs, you do struggle a little bit to get a foot down, but that's if you're quite short. And looking at this seat, I feel like it could be shaved down quite considerably. And because these are specifically made to be heavily modified and to be a real platform for modification by Royal Enfield, I think that kind of modification on these bikes is going to be very popular. Obviously, seat height is the big thing that comes to mind when we talk about ergonomics, but there's so much you're going to be able to do with these bikes. There's a really cool nacelle on the front where you can get kind of a headlight cowl with a little bit of a screen, which looks awesome. I really like that. I did like one of the bikes they had customized, which had the bar and mirrors on it as well. Really cool styling. Just to give a bit of a glimpse into the potential of these bikes, because they're an awesome thing to ride. As I said, a huge step up from the 350s as far as the ride performance, the engine performance, of course. They're still LAMS legal, so pretty much anyone can jump on one of these and have heaps of fun. And I actually think they were talking about doing some minor mods to the engine, so airbox mods, a fuel module, and getting an extra 20 horsepower out of one of these. So if you're a fully licensed rider and you're thinking to yourself, not quite enough performance, there's plenty of grounds to really expand out what you're getting out of this bike, not just in the styling and kind of the modifications and things like that, but also on the performance side of things. You don't have to go to the extent of boring out the engine or anything like that, although some people have done that and got really impressive figures. But this bike is just a machine that is full of potential and is an absolutely exceptional machine straight out of the box. So you're going to have heaps of fun on one of these, even if you never modify it at all. So the heart of the Royal Enfield shotgun is undoubtedly a chill but formidable 650 sports cruiser, or perhaps a lazy naked, depending which side of the spectrum you're coming from. Offering undeniable style that's unique in the 650 class and a build quality and loadout which really represents how far Royal Enfield have come in a decade. Highlights of getting to spend the day on the bike are pretty varied too, with us having the explore of some inner city streets of Melbourne before heading out via the freeway to open roads, as well as some welcome narrower twisties. The pace wasn't red hot, but then it didn't need to be on the shotgun, which rumbles along nicely and drew plenty of attention in the CBD. You're probably not going to be rounding up your rider friends to check out some cobbled roads in a CBD, but the bike did feel strangely at home here, offering a willing and comfortable option for the type of more mundane commuting that'll more likely be your everyday on the way to uni or work, where a motorcycle can turn that chore into a fun adventure, and not just because you can often avoid so much of the traffic. Despite a lack of wind protection, the highway is no problem with really good horsepower, which is one of the big aspects of this bike. I think it offers an alternative to the Royal Enfield 350s that ticks a lot of boxes.
Being a parallel twin instead of a single, for instance, significantly more power and performance, a bit more refined too, I'd say, although that kind of falls under the twin differentiation. Better suspension and brakes too, a better power to weight ratio, there is a lot to love. This is, however, still very much a Royal Enfield. In fact, I'd say it's a more traditional one than any of the other 650s currently available, with the manufacturer blending the right mix of evolution and conservatism in their offerings. Running through the twisties on a chill autumn morning with the sun out, a good nip to the air and nothing but the road, and well, a bunch of other shotguns in front of me, was about as good as it gets here, forging across the nice Victorian roads, that twin rumble offering a decent soundtrack, and it just being the connection between bike and rider at the forefront. The shotgun also sits in good stead against competition like the new Harley Davidson X500, with styling that aligns a bit more closely with something like an 883 for instance, which could be a real draw card, especially being a Lambs machine here in Australia. I'd say other competition probably include something like the W800, which isn't beginner legal, if we're just talking about the character and feel of the bike, or perhaps a softer XSR 700 if I stretch that a bit further. None of these are of course an exact competitor for the shotgun, which underlines the strength of this machine. My pick of the accessories for this bike would also be the Urban Fly Screen, bar end mirrors, and if you're a new rider, do yourself a favour and invest in those engine guards, which is a pretty clean set of bars. You should naturally head into your local Royal Enfield dealer and check one of these out, because on the off chance this isn't the bike for you, I reckon if it caught your eye, the Super Meteor, Interceptor or Continental GT may be closer to the mark for you, or even perhaps the new Himalayan.
Just to go through a couple more details, obviously analog LCD dash, we've got the Royal Enfield Tripper, which is like a navigation system, really simple but amazing to have on a standard bike. Everything is pretty simple. I do love the kind of billet style switch blocks, which are really, really nice. The finish quality is beautiful. We've got blacked out components pretty much across the bike, obviously apart from the paint, which again really, really looks awesome. And yeah, it's just an awesome machine. Dual exhausts, which are really, they give a little bit of note. It's not the loudest of bikes. You do get a bit more of the intake roar, but when you get on it a bit more, you get a nice little note out of the bike as well. So really cool thing. And yeah, overall, I'm really impressed with what Royal Enfield have done. I think if you've been impressed by their previous bikes in the 650 class, whether it's the Nakeds or that Super Meteor, the Cruiser, this is very much built from the same platform. Getting a great engine, you're actually getting some really good suspension as well, which very much is a competitive offering in the 650 class, whether you're a fully licensed rider who likes, something with 50 horsepower, or you're a beginner rider looking for your first machine to jump onto. You'll love this. And as I said, so much potential on it. These are 12. I think this model here, which is the premium model with the 3 kind of tone paint, I believe it is, it's 12, and it's a little bit less for the ones you see behind me in the green and the blue, and the base model is the blacked out model, which some people really like because it's kind of that stealthy Street Fighter kind of style. And again, all in the bobber theme. So very, very cool option from Royal Enfield. And yeah, it's just amazing to see another offering in that 650 class from them. Anyway, if you've got any questions, let me know down below. As always, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching.